far too many people, they know they have a passion. They want to develop that passion and pursue that passion. But for whatever reason, they're standing on the sidelines. They're there waiting for someone to fulfill their dreams. And the fact is that's not going to happen. You have to take a step back and really take charge at your future by following your passions, following your heart.
Welcome to the Fitness CEO Podcast.
Hey, welcome back, friends, to another amazing episode of the Fitness CEO Podcast. I'm your Fitness CEO, Bryce Henson, and today I'm going to tell you the story on how I moved to Brazil and met my wife, Tatiana. But most importantly, the two big takeaways that you can implement to level up your life. So back in the early 2000s, I grew up in the state of Michigan, and the Midwest is a great place to be, but I was always infatuated with Southern California, with Los Angeles, California on the brain. And I was a giant Kobe Bryant fan. I loved Kobe Bryant for his dominance on the court, but most people don't actually know. He spent his early childhood in Italy, so he could speak fluent Italian, and that was really, really charming to me to see him dominate the sports industry, and then afterwards, win championships. And, after each game, he would, give a podcast or a press conference, I should say, to the American press. And I'd always be really impressed when he'd stay back and give a press conference in Italian to the Italian press. And I thought I was really fascinated with that. And I always thought to myself, at some point, I wanted to learn another language and live in another country. I was also infatuated with Brazil. In fact, my grandma used to love the Mardi Gras parades, the sambistas. I was a huge soccer fan, or futebol, as they say in Brazil. And I remember a pivotal moment in my childhood was back in 1994 when Roberto Baggio of Italy missed a penalty kick, and Brazil won the finals and ultimately the World Cup in the Los Angeles Pasadena Rose Bowl, which was just an eye-opening experience and really just magnified this kind of essence of the Brazilian culture. And I was just a huge fan of both of these organizations, both Brazil, the country, the culture, and then ultimately Kobe Bryant from a championship perspective. So that all say, growing up in the Midwest, I ended up having the opportunity to move out west in Los Angeles back in 2004. And I was excited to be in California, Los Angeles, the palm trees, the blue skies, everything that LA in California has to offer. But I was also being very candid. I had more dark days than good. I wasn't active and fit and healthy and vibrant. I didn't have fitness. I didn't have confidence, enthusiasm that I do now because from a fitness foundation, I hadn't leveled up my life and hadn't leveled up myself yet. So I lived that way for a little bit of time. And then a fortuitous situation happened. One of my first fitness mentors, a best friend to this day, named Adam, moved out west. And he was my first fitness mentor. He had six-pack abs, the glistening muscles. And when he moved out west, we decided to live together. And really for a period of 2 years, he took me under his wing. He introduced me to working out. He introduced me to circuit training, clean nutrition, but most importantly, coaching and accountability. And that's why, I have such a passion for, coaching, because it works. When you hold someone accountable, when you give them the guide, big results can happen. And that's really what happened to me. And this is early 2007 into early 2008 and 9. And just had a really, really, transformational experience. So with that newfound, leveling up aspect of life, I had more confidence and energy, enthusiasm. And at that point, I'd start traveling the world a little bit. I'd traveled and studied abroad in Asia. I had been to Europe. And then after, going through this transformation, I was really, really keen on taking a trip to Brazil. And the story was set in 2008 around Christmas time. And this was an absolute game changer in my life. And, especially growing up in the Midwest, and if any of you watching here, the winters can be brutal. In fact, around Christmas time, December, January, and February, I was out there shoveling snow for a good, hours on end. And I still have a little PTSD for to this day. So that's typically the climate on how my Christmases in December and January timeframes were. So by me taking a trip to Brazil for Christmas time, which is on the other end of the world, the southern hemisphere has opposite seasons, I show up there with my buddies. And it's the middle of summer, the beaches, the sun. It was literally just the coolest thing ever. I was just so enamored. But most importantly, I was finally there, realized my dream of visiting Brazil. And my friend, it did not disappoint. It was literally love at first sight. Not only the culture, the vibe, the language, it just made it like a really, really big impact on me. And I was really, really inspired. So I had the most amazing, 14 days in South America, and specifically in Rio de Janeiro. And we came back from the trip. And at that point, while previously I always wanted to learn another language and live in another country, as I mentioned, I was a huge Kobe Bryant fan and really wanted to follow the model that he laid. I didn't know what country that was. And I was inspired by Brazil. But when I visited there for Christmas in 2008, the light clicked. And for me, it was just very, very clear, like, this is what I wanted to do. So I wanted to start learning Brazilian Portuguese. So I came back to LA. I lived in Orange County at the time, just south of Irvine, and I enrolled myself into Brazilian Portuguese class. And I did that for a few months, and I was gaining a little bit of traction, but I realized after a few months in, like, I was not getting this quick enough. I was not learning this, fast enough. And the only way that I had a fighting chance to actually become fluent in the language is if I ended up moving to Brazil. And that's when the light bulb clicked for me. So I just made this decision. I ended up reaching out to my boss at the time, and I said, hey, Eric, I know this sounds crazy. And by the way, this was well before COVID, before remote working was a thing, but I ended up working out of a home office. And I said, Eric, this sounds crazy, but I really have a passion to move to South America and live in Brazil. And he said, all right, man, I'll let you go for a year. You've been an awesome teammate and sales rep for me for the course of the last 5 years in startup phase, and let you get on there for a year and see how it goes. So I was excited. He gave me the green light to go ahead and do that. But ultimately, I just didn't know, what city I wanted to live in, because Rio de Janeiro, if you haven't been, it's a big metropolitan urban sprawl, kind of like the Los Angeles of Brazil. And while I enjoyed vacationing there, I wasn't totally sold on that was the spot I actually wanted to live on. So I did the most logical thing possibly I could do, and I had some Brazilian friends. In fact, my first fitness mentor, Adam, who I referred to a few minutes ago, he ended up marrying a Brazilian girl from Rio de Janeiro. And so I reached out to Priscilla. And if you're watching, I love and have so much respect and gratitude for you both. So I reached out to Priscilla and I said, hey, Priscilla, I'm interested to move to your beautiful country, learn your beautiful language. If you were to move back to Brazil, where would you move? And she thought about it for a second. She said, well, Bryce, the south of Brazil typically is more well-known and liked, or at least more attractive place to live. And there's a little island in the very south with 47 beaches, and it's actually known to be the vacation destination of Brazil. It's the diamond, if you will. It's called Florianopolis. And at the time, I'd never heard of Florianopolis before. So I was like, interesting. So I did a little bit of research, and then I started reaching out to some other Brazilian friends, some people that she introduced me to. And sure enough, I asked the same question, and the response came back, well, the south of Brazil is probably the prettiest, the beautifulest, the most infrastructure. I would move to an island in the very south that has 47 beaches called Florianopolis. So now it's kind of in my mind. I never heard of the city before, but I was definitely intrigued. And Ed Milet talks about the reticular activating system, kind of like if you've never seen a Tesla before, but then some of your friends say, hey, have you checked out a Tesla? And then all of a sudden, like in every rearview mirror, you see a Tesla all around you. That's your reticular activating system, or your RAS, at work, okay, showcasing what is in your conscious. So it seemed to be all of a sudden, I never heard of this island before, and then I'm hearing it over and over again. But really, this is alluding to a point when things changed for me, and the stars aligned. Ended up having a dinner with my buddy. His name was Mike, and he had worked for American Airlines for over a decade. And Mike had, traveled around the world. He had seen all these places, and I was excited to connect with him. It had been, a little bit of time. So we had sushi dinner, and we're out to eat, and we're talking about a little bit of our travel experiences and whatnot. And the subject of Brazil came up, and I was like, dude, I'm so excited to talk to you about this. I literally just went down to Brazil about 8 months ago, had the time of my life. In fact, I just reached out to my boss, and he's letting me move there in a few months. I just need to figure out where I want to go. And I loved Rio de Janeiro. It was so awesome. I had such a incredible experience, but I'm not totally sold on that either. And he's like, dude, man, I cannot believe you're bringing this up. Last year, I ended up going to Rio de Janeiro, and I had a great time. But there's an island in the very south of Brazil with 47 beaches. It's known to be the vacation destination. It's like the diamond of Brazil. And I kid you not, like out of the movies, and I was thinking to myself, don't even say it. Don't even say it. And literally out of the movies, we both said the word Florianopolis at the same time. And my friend, at that point, I took a step back and I knew I was called. Whether it's the universe or God or the universal energy, something out there was calling me to this island in the south of Brazil with 47 beaches called Florianopolis. And I reach out to my brother, my family, my immediate family, and I let them know that this is what I need to do. I'm called to move to this island of Florianopolis to live in the culture and learn the language. And, this is something I'm destined to do. And I know it sounds crazy as my mother, recounts feedback at the time, but this is something that I need to do. I got to follow my heart. I got to follow my passion. I got to follow my purpose. And I am called to do this. So. Hey there, my name is Bryce Henson, CEO of Fit Body Bootcamp, and you might know me as the host of this podcast, but what you might not know is that I started my fitness business journey as a Fit Body location owner. And since 2012, I've been able to impact my community while creating financial freedom, both for myself and my family too. You see, by using Fit Body's proven business model, we give you all the support and guidance you need to be your own boss and build a business that aligns with your passion for fitness. And we are the absolute best at launching and scaling our franchise partners gyms, we are now excited to announce our 100 member guarantee. Now you might be thinking, Bryce, what is that? Well, we are so confident that we'll launch your Fit Body Bootcamp location with well over 100 paying members from day one on your grand opening that if we don't, we'll run your marketing till we do. That's how confident we are in our ability to support you and guide you through this process. So if you're interested in creating more income through impact, click the link somewhere around this video to apply. This all to say, I reached back out to Mike about a week or two later, and I asked him for some help and some tips, and he introduced me to his tour guide. Her name is Laura, and as it turns out, the stars aligned. Laura had a place for me to stay, and her sister was actually studying abroad in California. I could use her car and rent her car, so everything kind of fell into place. A few weeks before I leave, and as I get everything organized, I send an email to my extended family and friends, and of course, as I just recounted, my immediate family and friends knew exactly what I was doing, but I sent an email to my extended family and friends just explaining what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And I kid you not, about 10 days before my trip, I get a call from my buddy, Steve. And true to form, Steve was more of an acquaintance. He was a friend of a friend. So it wasn't someone that in my close circle, but someone that I used to hang out with through Mark quite often. And Steve calls me up and he's like, "Hey, Bryce, this is Steve, Mark's buddy." I was like, "Oh, what's going on, Steve?" He's like, "Dude, this sounds so crazy, but I was just connecting with Mark, and Mark said, this sounds kind of wild, but you're moving to an island called Florianopolis in the south of Brazil. Is that right?" And I was like, "Dude, man, not only is that right, I'm actually moving in 10 days. Like literally, I have everything packed and ready to go." And he's like, "This sounds wild. This sounds nuts. But you know me, I'm from Ohio, but I went to college with a girl that lives there. I don't know if you'd be interested or up for it. I'd be happy to put you in touch if you're looking for some help. She speaks fluent English." And I was like, "Dude, I will take every help that I can possibly get this moment. I'd be happy, be certainly very, very grateful if you can put me in touch." So he did. He put us in touch via email and, connected with us. And I reached out to her, Steve's friend, and we exchanged some dialogue. And as fate would have it, her schedule was flexible. She spoke fluent English. She went to college in the States. And she said, "Bryce, well, as it depends on, I guess when you get in, my schedule is decently flexible now and again. But ultimately, depending on when you arrive, I can maybe even come pick you up from the airport." And I was like, "Oh my God, like the stars are absolutely aligning. So I'll certainly take you up on that." And that's exactly what happened. So the day comes, I get dropped off at LAX by my sister, and I'm about to embark on a 24-hour journey, literally 3 flights from getting from LA to Lima, Peru to Sao Paulo, all the way down to Florianopolis, literally the other side of the earth. It took me 24 hours, nearly 10,000 miles, and I finally arrive in Florianopolis. And my friend, I kid you not, my wife Tatiana is there at the airport, straight out of a movie, picking me up and welcoming me to her beautiful country. And as they say, the rest is history. And I say that in jest because I do want to shoot another episode talking about the challenges and the trials and the tribulations and the struggles that I endured. But really from a mindset perspective, and to kind of put a bow on this particular story, that is how I ended up moving to Brazil, to a little island island called Florianopolis, and I met my wife. Since then, I've been able to gain an incredible family. In fact, one of my best friends from Brazil is out in Vegas right now. His nephew is one of the world's best poker players. I'm going to go visit him for a quick 24-hour trip. And this, my friends, this move has enriched my life in so many ways. It's increased my confidence and allowed me to learn a foreign language fluently from scratch. It's gave me family. It's gave me purpose. It's just enriched my life in so many ways. And when I look back at this, the message that I want to share is two major messages, two very critical points in this particular story that have a game-changing impact on my life. And I want to share with you, I want to challenge you to do the same. And the first is you got to follow your heart. You got to follow your passion. You got to follow your purpose. My friend, you have one shot at this life. You have one spin around this globe. And far too many people, they know, that they have a passion. They want to develop that passion and pursue that passion. But for whatever reason, they're standing on the sidelines. They're there waiting for someone to fulfill their dreams. And the fact is that's not going to happen. You have to take a step back and really take charge at your future by following your passions, following your heart. That's where bliss is, and that's where fulfillment is on the other side. That's my first message for you today, my friend. And the second message that I can glean from the experience is that you got to follow your calling. And there's a difference from having passion, and there's a difference from about being called for something more. And I was called, whether it's the universe, whether it's the universal energy, whether it's God, whatever you want to believe, whatever I think and materialize that, the reality of the situation, I was called to do this. And I had two decisions. I could not answer the call and sit back on the sidelines and just wait and have regret and self-doubt and look back at my life later on in years and think to myself, like, what if, and live with the regret. And that's not what I wanted for myself, and that's not what I want for you. Instead, I decided to answer the call. And that's my message for you today too. Because if you're watching this video, I know in my bones, you are called, you are meant for something more. So you also have the decision. Are you going to wait on the sidelines? Or are you going to take action? Are you going to follow your passion? You follow your purpose, follow your calling. For me, that's how you live a life well lived. That's how you level up in life. And that's how you live a life that you can be proud of, that you can pass on legacy to, and that you can share with your family. And that, my friend, is my message for you today. So with all that said, I want to remind you that no one is coming to save you. You must save yourself, and the time is now. If you enjoyed this message, I highly encourage you to give it a like, give it a subscribe, and better yet, share this with someone in need. And that way we can keep producing this awesome content for you. And my friend, thank you for being on the show, and we'll see you in the next episode.